Good. We're live.
Are we? I'm not seeing anything.
We're live. It's delayed.
Okay, we're live. Wait, this is too close to you. All right. If you, yeah, it's laggy. If you can see us, drop your name in the comments and tell us where you're from. Tell us where you're coming from if you can see us. Welcome to Canine Revolution Live with Aaron and myself. And we're just giving people a couple minutes to get in here. We're also turning on Instagram Live at the same time. But if you're in here with us, leave us a comment, leave us your name, tell us where you're coming from, start dropping your questions. Paige, we see your question. We'll get to that in just a second. All right. Getting everything up and running here, waiting for Ben behind the camera to let us know how we're looking. If you're having problems seeing us, if you're having problems hearing us, please let us know in the comments so that we can fix the audio-visual technologies and make sure everything is good to go. All right. Hey, Mike, welcome. Paige, welcome. Everyone else, as you're coming in, please drop us a comment. Please let us know where you're coming from. Thanks for tuning in. We got California checking in. Good to see you guys. Thanks for being here. All right, so we're going to start off. Hey, Taylor and Duke. Just starting off here, we're going to do a quick intro, 1 minute or less, Aaron. 1 minute or less. Tell us your name. Tell us where you were at before you were dog training. All right, give us a little bit about yourself, 1 minute or less. We've got YouTube right here. We've got Instagram right over here. All right, Aaron, go. 1 minute or less.
All right, so I'm Aaron. I was a teacher before becoming a dog trainer. I taught in Maryland and Texas, and so transitioning to South Carolina, pursued dog training, and I've been here ever since.
All right, good to go.
1 minute, done.
And if you don't know me, I'm Chad, originally from South Carolina, was in the Navy for a little bit, stationed in California, moved back to South Carolina from California. I was in San Diego, moved back to South Carolina, the Low Country, Charleston area with Canine Revolution dog training. Been dog training for over 7 years now, and looking forward to getting you guys taken care of today with your questions and everything. Thank you for your support. And so without further ado, let's start with the questions. So Paige says, how do I stop my dog from jumping up to guests that come in the door? Aaron, take it away.
So the first thing I want to do is not allow that dog to be jumping or over greeting guests, right? So managing that, kind of breaking that habit. So having a leash on is going to be something I would recommend when you know people are coming over, and just making sure that we're managing that dog's behavior. So that, it's simply not allowed to. Now, if we get into the training aspect, right, we can start working through teaching a downstay and teaching duration in that. so that when people are coming over, even simulating drills of your family knocking on doors, ringing the doorbell, kind of desensitizing those things. So and then kind of having that dog in the downstay and rewarding that as they're maintaining, and adding those distractions in small sessions.
Totally. Good to go. With that being said, one of the things that we focus on is your dog keeping all 4 paws on the ground. That's the first objective when you're handling your dog jumping up to guests. So like Aaron said, keeping a leash on your dog can help you accomplish that, because if you have someone come over, even if you haven't trained your dog any behaviors or anything, if they start jumping up at your guest, you can use the leash and bring your dog away from your guests. Okay, you don't want your dog to practice jumping up on your guests or anything, because whatever your dog is practicing is what they're going to continue to perform. Okay, and then like Aaron said, you do want to focus on teaching your dog some type of behavior to perform instead of jumping up when your guests come over. So like a downstay, a sit stay, going to a spot or a place command, those types of things, those are ideal. And what I do specifically myself, when I have someone coming over, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, or whether it's one of my kids' friends coming in the door, whoever it is, my dogs know if someone's coming in that door, go to your spot, go to your place command, which is a pet cot. You move away from the door, you go over there, you hang out there until you're given the okay, which means you can get up, you can then go over and get pet by people if that's what's happening. Sometimes the dogs just stay on their place or their spot for a longer period of time. Depends on what's going on, depends on how you want to run that structure. Okay. All right, Joel says he's got a Jack Russell and thinks that people coming over just accept they're going to get a little bit of delay here. Can you bring up that window? Bring up that window. We can see the comments, but they're getting cut off by your other window with the selfie view. Yeah. All right. If you can still hear us or see us, please leave a comment so that we know we're good to go. Looks like we're lagging just a little bit. So if you're having any problems hearing us or seeing us, please let us know so we can continue to troubleshoot that. All right, the Happy 420 Garden says, is taking my 11th month-old Lab and Coonhound mix to a training class. She does great on commands except for what distractions are outside. Aaron, what do you got? Comments on that statement?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that's common, right? When we go to training classes, and then adding those distractions in is that normal part of that next progression. So we want to do some more focus building drills just to make sure that your dog's focus is on you. So talking about engagement, what engagement is, when your dog makes eye contact with you, marking that behavior with a verbal command or a verbal word, and then having a little bit of food reward there to reward that focus. So then applying that in multiple sessions so that your dog is learning that you are the most valuable distraction or thing to look at in those environments rather than those other distractions. That's going to be very important. So as we continue to do those sessions, as we advance those sessions, that focus should come to you. But then there is an element of, that when we get to distractions, that we need to have, accountability in place to let your dog know when they are doing the right thing or they need to adjust their focus back to you. So having an effective way to communicate with your dog when they need to adjust their behavior is going to be important.
Exactly. And just taking your time to build up your distraction levels, right? Mm-hmm. Don't expect your dog to go from your training class to the farmer's market, which is a crazy distraction scenario. Don't expect that to happen immediately. Mm-hmm. You need to slowly increase your distractions. So maybe from the training class to the store or to a park, and then to like a shopping center if there's one around you, or like a Tractor Supply or a Lowe's, Home Depot, home improvement store, and then to like a busy festival or farmer's market or something like that. All right. So definitely check that out. Patty, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. All right, DK, you're asking, how do I eliminate my rescue dog's ferocious food guarding behavior? My dog previously was not fed enough food and is very protective of food. Real quick before I get to that, Ben, will you check the Instagram feed for any potential questions over there while I answer DK's question? All right, so you got a rescue dog, you got food, guarding, behavior, dog previously not fed enough food, now it's protective of food. So I was literally on the phone doing a virtual consultation about this very issue just the other day. And unfortunately with rescue dogs, a lot of them have baggage or trauma from things that happened to them in their former life. And thankfully, your dog DK is now in your life and you're taking great care of them and being a great pet owner for them versus people before you that are not doing that. So thank you for taking that on, and also thank you for working with your dog instead of just giving it up, which unfortunately happens way too much in today's world. With that being said, resource guarding, food guarding, we want to get to the root cause of this. All right, so what you don't want to do is just immediately start correcting your dog or applying pressure to your dog for displaying the guarding behavior, because you don't want to increase that frustration or that behavior. We want to get to the root cause. We want to help rehabilitate our dog's mindset in this specific situation. So what we prefer for this is for you to start hand feeding your dog, because what we're looking for is a counter conditioning of your dog's understanding of eating food. We also want to see your specific relationship with your dog go to the next level. And if you hand feed your dog, you're going to rehabilitate whatever's going on mentally so that they now have a clear understanding on their relationship with food and their relationship with you or anybody else that's going to be feeding them. Okay, let's say you take a vacation or something like that. You have like a house sitter coming over to feed your dog. We want your dog to respect that context, person, scenario the same as they do you. So what I recommend for this, don't feed your dog in a bowl. Instead, put your dog's food in a bait bag, a fanny pack, your pocket if you're feeding kibble. If you're feeding a raw diet, I would probably have it in a Ziploc bag, or have a glove on so I can easily handle that raw food, or whether it's, some kind of other food like farmer's dog or whatever, like some kind of food that's not as clean as kibble for handling. Kibble gets pretty nasty itself though if you just are using that. So put your food in a bait bag in your pocket, something like that. Put your dog on a leash. The purpose of the leash is just to manage your dog. Yes, slip leads are okay as well. Happy 420 Gardens asking if slip leads are okay. You can use a slip lead as well. But the purpose of the leash, the purpose of the slip lead at this point is just to manage your dog and provide some type of guidance to them if you need to. It also prevents your dog from blowing you off, right? If you have a dog off leash, you're trying to train with them and they just decide to walk off on you, that's blowing you off. So that's not going to help you increase your relationship with the dog. It's not going to help you rehabilitate that mindset. So you keep your dog on a leash or a slip lead, take it to wherever you want to start feeding it, whether it's in your house or in your backyard or front yard, something like that. And I just want you to kind of hang out with your dog and wait for your dog to be looking at you. As soon as your dog looks at you, ideally you say good, reach into your pocket or your bait bag, you grab some food, you bring it out, you let your dog have it out of your hand. Once you do that, you're going to take a couple steps to the side, and then you're going to repeat that same process. And again, in an ideal world, when you're doing this, you are waiting for your dog to move their head, look right at you, you say good, reach into your pocket or your bait bag, bring the food out, give your dog the food. Okay, that's the ideal way to do it. And then once that happens, you take a couple steps to a different area of your yard or your house, you repeat the same process. Now, let's say your dog is struggling to look at you. Let's say that, they're so distracted or they would rather look at something else. In this case, it's okay to say your dog's name. It's okay to tap your dog on the butt or on the back just a little bit. And all you're trying to do is get their attention. As soon as you have their attention, you just say good, right? Then you reward them. And this is going to take repetitions. So I don't expect this to be a 1 or 2 day thing. this could be a 7 to 21 day event. It could be longer, where every meal you take that time to feed your dog from your hand when they're giving you eye contact, because again, like I said, this is counter conditioning their understanding of mealtime and food time, and also rehabilitating their mindset. Once you accomplish that and your dog is looking at you, you can just tell that they're more comfortable with food with you. All right, you could go back to feeding from a bowl if you wanted to, and all you would do is have your food in the bowl, set it down, right? Let your dog have it, and then when your dog's done, you just take the food up or whatever, okay? And then from there, I would progress into getting some more precise obedience work done. You can definitely refer to some of the videos on our YouTube channel to see how we do that. But the eye contact is and the hand feeding with the leash are the first steps to doing that. Okay. Taylor, I see your question. We'll get to that in just a second. Real quick, the Happy 420 Gardens asking, do you always have to give food rewards? So at the beginning of a training progression, at the beginning of rehabilitation, I do recommend food rewards, because that's going to help you establish that conditioning factor to your dog. Your dog is a nonverbal being, so you can't explain things to them verbally. You have to show them how to do things. And we would rather do that through a way where your dog is enjoying the process, and food is just the easiest way to do that, okay? At a certain point in training, you're going to start doing what we call fading, which is starting to remove the food from the training so that you don't need the food, okay? So to answer your question, I do recommend giving food rewards at the beginning of your training and your foundational stages of training. But as you progress, you are looking to fade that food away so that you don't need it, okay? And if you go to our YouTube, we do discuss that a little bit in the Ultimate Dog Training Guide. We'll talk about how we progress a dog from start to finish, whether you're rehabilitating from resource guarding or whether you're just training your dog obedience, things like that. But we'll talk in there about how you can start fading away or removing the food rewards from training. Again, very important for foundation, but you don't want to be stuck on food long term, okay? So keep sending us questions if you guys have them. We're looking at Taylor's question now. Taylor says, we are taking a road trip from South Carolina to Houston, Texas in a week.
True.
That's a good road trip right there.
That's
right?
a good one.
Any what's that burger place in Texas?
Oh, a Whataburger.
Whataburger?
Sure.
Whataburger or Whataburger?
Whataburger.
Whataburger. Whataburger? Whataburger? Make sure you go to Whataburger. Whataburger. In California, it's In-N-Out. So, Joel, I know you're from California. In-N-Out's over there. All right. Any tips or recommendations for traveling and long car rides, ways to maintain his training while we're traveling and visiting new people and dogs? Great question.
Yeah.
Aaron,
Well,
take us away.
Taylor, I literally did this drive when I moved from Houston to South Carolina. So it's definitely a long one and one that you want to prepare for. So first thing, obviously, you're going to map out your stops, right? Keeping in mind, Duke's going to need to use the bathroom. He's going to have his exercise needs that he still does on a day-to-day basis. So my recommendation is always plan it out, plan your stops, but beforehand, make sure that he's nice and tired, go for a walk before getting in the car, prioritize, his needs that day. That way when you're getting in the vehicle, he's calm, he's relaxed, he's resting. As you're progressing through your trip, and I've done this myself, I planned stops. I actually had to stop more frequently for myself.
Whoa.
Than
You were
for
hydrated?
my dogs.
You
Oh
had to
yeah,
pee?
yeah. So, just planning thoughtful stops where there's grass around, there's room for you to stretch your legs, room for Duke to stretch his legs, go on walks, incorporate some of that, some training drills, that way he's getting good amounts of that mental stimulation on top of what's already been going on, But yeah, I would just say takes planning. And just making sure that he's, nice and tired, that all his needs are met. And then, maintains training, and visiting new people. I mean, same thing as when someone comes in the door. So, giving him something to focus on, or any dog, something to focus on. We want to make sure that we're adhering to, that down stay, we're adhering to the all four paws on the ground, even if your dog isn't trained, and just having those good experiences around new people, places, and things. So.
Yeah, I've traveled quite a bit with dogs. When I moved from San Diego, California, back to South Carolina, I had 3 dogs with me. And so basically kind of my routine for traveling, I've also last year, the year before, went to Disney World with my kids and my dogs. So, a lot going on there. But like Aaron's saying, you plan out your trip accordingly. What my preference is, 88. So Pack Talk Podcast, episode 88, we discussed traveling with your dog. So you can refer to that. Listen to it while you're driving if you want some more tips and tricks. But for me, kind of 2 hours is what is my limit. I'll go a 2-hour stretch, then I'll take a break. I'll go to a rest area or like a gas station and, take the dogs out, let them go to the bathroom, take them on a short walk, 5-10 minutes maybe, do some training, because it's good to get that blood flowing, right? Because as you know, when you're traveling for a long time, you kind of get into that, I don't know even know what you call it, but you're kind of zoning out.
Standby mode.
You're getting kind of lethargic, you know what I'm saying? You start hurting or whatever. Your joints are getting sore. So every 2 hours or so, if you can, pull over, rest area, gas station, take a short walk, get that blood flowing, do a little bit of training, potty break, that type of stuff. Then load back up, go for another 2 hours. So that's kind of my routine for driving daily. If I'm staying the night on the road, I'll usually look up where the La Quinta hotels are, because those are dog friendly. They usually don't have a dog fee. And when I was traveling from San Diego to South Carolina, San Diego, California to South Carolina, La Quinta all the way across, I had 2 Dobermans, an Australian Shepherd, or no, I had 1 Doberman, Australian Shepherd, and a mutt with me, German Shepherd mix. So La Quinta, no pet fees, nothing like that. So super easy to get in, super easy to get out. I did have their kennels with me as well. So I'd load those up on one of those cargo carts, push it into the room, set them up, get the dogs out the truck, take the dogs in, do my thing, doing doorway protocols as I'm going through doorways in and out of the hotel, hotel door, doing protocols there. So I'm doing all my training as I go. I'd go to the hotel gym. I'd put my dog in a downstay. When I'm working out, take my dogs to the hotel breakfast with me, have them in a downstay while I'm eating breakfast. You don't have to do all that. That's just what I do, right? Recently on my trip to Disney World, we stopped at a Wendy's.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, it was good, too.
Oh, wow.
It was good.
Interesting.
So stopped at a Wendy's, put the dogs in a downstay outside of Wendy's. I went in, got food. The people are like, "Are those your dogs?" I'm like, "Yeah, those are my dogs." They're just hanging out outside. Go back outside. We ate outside and then, loaded up, hit the road again. So there's a lot of good ways to do that, but just plan out. Don't drive too long, because if you drive too long, you're getting upset. Your dog's getting kind of
antsy.
Yeah, antsy as well. So 2 hours for me is kind of the sweet spot to get my training, get a little walk in. And then if I'm visiting like a place, I always make sure that morning I get up early, take my dog on a walk, get my training in before I go off with my family and friends and leave the dog, at wherever I'm staying at. So I make sure their needs are met first. Then I go do my thing that day with whoever I'm with. Whenever we come back to the house or back to the Airbnb or wherever you're staying, more training, more exercise with the dog, before you go do your next thing. So you can definitely make it work easily. You're just modifying your routine a little bit. You're maintaining your training. So you're doing all your normal training stuff, right? And you're just doing that every day. All right. So hopefully that helps. Pack Talk Podcast episode 88 is your episode for traveling as well. We're live on TikTok, so
Jump over to YouTube if you want to.
if you're on TikTok, if you're on Instagram, and you want to get questions to us real quick, hop over to the YouTube and put your questions in the comments. We're reading the questions right off of YouTube, but we are live on TikTok and Instagram as well. Thank you for being here. All right, moving on to the next question. Happy 420 Garden asks, what can I do to get my dog to stop jumping in between me and my wife? So it sounds like husband and wife, or, just a couple, they're hugging or whatever, I'm assuming, you know, they're trying to make some kind of contact, and the dog's getting up in the middle of that. What do you think, Aaron? Does this happen with you, Aaron? Did it used to?
It used to with Maverick every now and then. So I would say just giving that dog something else to do. So it goes back to people coming into the door, right, and managing that. So not allowing that to happen. When your dog comes in between, we use the leash to guide them somewhere else. You know, of course, all 4 paws on the ground. If you allow them on the couch, that's fine. Maybe we're just redirecting them to the other side, or where you and your wife can hang out, you know, and the dog's on the other side of either one of you. So just kind of reinforcing that, you know, making sure that we're not, you know, we don't want to pet him when he's right in between us, because for him or for your dog, that would be, you know, letting him know he's getting exactly what he wants, right? So, you know, redirecting consistently, making sure that they understand, like we go into training, you know, teaching a stay command, whether that be a place, a down, a sit, and teaching them to hold that is going to help them as well. So that way they learn, you know, they're working for, you know, that attention. They're working for, you know, and we interact with them through training. So that's going to help as well.
Yeah, I mean, if a dog's getting between me and my wife, or me and one of my kids even, you know, if I'm hanging out with one of my kids, the dog comes in there, they want attention, you know, I'll usually tell them to go spot, and that means to go over to their pet cot, lay down, right? And, you know, they'll get some attention later. But what we don't want is our dog demanding attention, right? Pushing their way in between people. And just remember, whatever your dog is practicing is what they will continue to do. So if your dog's practicing getting between you and your wife, Mike, you just want to be careful, because they'll keep doing that. So as soon as they do that, use it as a training opportunity. Take them to their place command. Take them to their spot command. Take them to their kennel if you need to. Use a leash. Hold them off to the side. Tell them to sit. Use it as a training opportunity. Yeah. Which means you and your wife might have to, you know, make more contacts, because you got to train. You know what I'm saying? So use that to your advantage. Anyway, hope that helps, Mike. Let us know in the comments if that does, or if you have a supplemental question. Moving on to DK. DK says, what suggestions do you have to manage random humans who roll up to me and my dog on a walk and get my dog all excited? Also, people who let their off-leash dog roll up to me and my leash dog. Now, this gets Aaron agitated. So, Aaron, what's your go-tos for this?
Yeah, I mean, this is a common thing that even us, you know, we deal with day in and day out. We wear shirts that say training, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, people see cute dogs, and I can't blame them. But, you know, some people think every dog on the street is theirs to interact with. Right, so,
right. I'll tell you what, those people are like, hey, the golden retrievers love me. Yeah. I'm like, well, I'm training this one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, I mean, at a certain point, you know, at the end of the day, you are your dog's advocate. So we have to remember that we're controlling the environment around them. If we see people, you know, first of all, we got to be paying attention, because if we don't see them, your dog certainly does. And if your dog easily gets excited by people, then they're going to be way more excited. That arousal level's already going to be taking off before you even have a chance to react. So being on your phone, you know, being distracted on, you know, conversations or whatever it may be, if that's too much, you know, take that time to solely focus on the environment around you. If you see people approaching and, you know, you can kind of tell when they're staring at your dog, they're interested, you know, just politely, starting with a wave, hey, how are you doing? You know, we're just doing some training out here, you know, really working on some focus, stuff like that. People ask hey, well, can I pet your dog? No, sorry, we're doing some training. So we always say, you know, we'll be your trainers from afar. You can use us as the bad guys. You know, my trainer said no.
Right. Canine Revolution told me not to let you pet my dog.
Yeah. But that's going to be more beneficial, because at the end of the day, unless you're really solely focused on interactions with strangers in your training progression, that focus on you is going to be way more valuable. It also goes back to, again, that engagement aspect. So teaching your dog to focus on you, and that you're more rewarding than those strangers, you know, even the ones that are catcalling them, wanting to tempt them to come near them. You know, nothing's more rewarding as a handler to see your dog looking at you in those moments. So really building up that focus so that this becomes alleviated over time. But yeah, you're gonna have to be the advocate for your dog. Off leash dogs, that's always tough. It really is. I mean, at that point, my priority is the dogs I have on my care, whether that be my personal dogs, training dogs, whatever it may be. We want to make sure that we're taking care of their needs. Some of those dogs, some of my personal dogs have extreme insecurity. So wanting to show them that I'm going to take care of that environment around them. That's how we build that trust. So I will either, depending on my surroundings, if I'm at a park and I can get, see that dog coming and I can turn around and get back to my vehicle, I'll do that, put my dog inside my car, handle the off-leash dog, or put my dog in a downstay and then, approach this off-leash dog. I'm not going to let that off-leash dog get to my dog. So, because that would be, outside of that trust bond that I've built with my animals. So, I'll make sure that, and we've had plenty of off-leash dogs come up to us, whether it be my neighborhood or just a walk in the park. If I have to get loud and make myself sound scary, I'll try to, yell and no. Most dogs look at me like, what? I never heard that word.
You do what you got to do, depending on the situation that's going on. But also don't forget that these can be really good training situations. So depending on who's walking up to you and your dog, depending on what that off-leash dog is doing, you could just use that as a training situation. If I have someone walking up to me wanting to pet my dog and I'm trying to work on my dog keeping all four paws on the ground, I might bring that person into my training situation and be like, hey, come over here. You want to pet my dog? Can you help me train it to keep four paws on the ground? Okay, this is what we're going to do. And then I'll be like, hey, I'm going to put my dog in a sit. If they get out of the sit, I want you to stop petting them, take a step away. So I'll tell the people exactly what I want as far as training. And if they can't be respectful and do that, they just keep petting the dog. Then I'll be like, okay, thank you. That's enough or whatever. For an off-leash dog, if that dog's charging me, I'll do what I got to do to keep that dog away from my dog. But if the dog's just kind of hanging out, I'll use that again as a training scenario. I'll be healing with my dog, put my dog in a downstay, let the off-leash dog kind of walk around or whatever. And I'm always looking for ways to train more, to do more training, to increase my distractibility training, right? So use those situations to your advantage if you can. But like Aaron was saying, you got a lot of examples on how to handle those situations. But in the end, you got to do what you got to do, to make sure that you're increasing your bond with your dog and increasing their behaviors, right?
On TikTok asking tips for resource guarding.
All right, tips for resource guarding. We went through that a little bit ago. We'll touch on it real quick again. Aaron, just give us some quick tips on resource guarding.
Yeah, so the first thing you're going to want to do is remove whatever resource that your dog's guarding, whether it be toys or food. We want to make sure that we're limiting that access and that they're learning that they're kind of working for those things. So if it's food, for example, we're going to start by doing some hand feeding. We need to reestablish or evaluate the relationship going on between us and our dog. So we want to make sure they understand for us that most valuable resource is going to come from us. And that's going to help kind of rewire that relationship between you and your dog. So as we continue to do hand feeding sessions, we talked about just as your dog's looking at you, we can say good, and we can give them some food, whether it be kibble or the raw food. You can do this with both. So showing your dog as they make eye contact with you, then they're getting that reward, they're getting their food. And over time, what we're hoping to see is that guarding, alleviated, because as they're learning, that's essentially them learning to respect and that relationship between you and your dog, and that you're going to be a strong leader, right? So as they're working for their food, whether it be in training or just day to day, they're earning it in their mind. And so that's going to be important. Same thing with toys. So if they're guarding toys, we remove the toys, and then, as we introduce them through interacting with you, through training, whatever it may be, teaching an out command, making sure they know when to give the toy away, not just then being like, okay, we can have free roam for toys anymore. We want to make sure that we have a way to let them know that they need to stop that behavior, and we can communicate effectively.
Ben, can you look up the Pack Talk podcast episode for resource guarding so we can reference that for people? All right, Tess, good to see you. She says, is there a polite way to educate about the e-collar, also known as remote collar, when someone approaches you about being cruel for using one or a choke chain? All right. And what I always try to do in these situations is just simply educate people. All right. So what I generally will do is if someone's coming up, they're asking about the e-collar, or they're saying that I'm a bad person because I'm using one, which I prefer the terminology remote collar, because we don't want to misconstrue, what the collar is actually doing or certain things of the collar. So I'll if they say, hey, why are you using an e-collar, I'll usually start educating them about it, and then I'll change the terminology to remote collar for them. That way they can kind of understand more of what it actually is. And same thing with a choke chain. I don't use choke chains most of the time. I'll use a fur saver. So if they're like, hey, why are you using a choke chain? I'll be like, technically it's a fur saver. The differences between a fur saver and a choke chain is a choke chain has very small links, and sometimes those can pinch the dog's skin. The fur saver has larger links, which will alleviate pinching the skin. All right. But what the choke chain and the fur saver both do is what they do is if you have a dog that's trying to pull away from you, or a nervous dog that gets scared of things, it won't let your dog slip the collar. We all have seen the flat collars. The dog can slip right out of those, which is dangerous for your dog, because if you have a nervous dog and there's a loud noise or something freaky going on, that dog slips that flat collar, now it's gone, right? Unless you've done extensive training with it. So that's the main purpose of a choke chain or a fur saver, is that it won't let your dog slip the collar. All right. The remote collar, obviously, as I'm educating the person, I'm telling them that the remote collar should not be the foundation of training. The remote collar is a tool that we use after the foundation of training is accomplished, right? And for us, it will take us about 10 to 14 days to even start using a remote collar. And when I'm at the point where I'm using a remote collar and it's trained properly, the remote collar is actually giving me the freedom to let my dog be a dog, because I can let my dog be off leash, run around in the hiking trail, run around the woods, run around the beach, and I can ensure its safety, right? If my dog starts approaching a dangerous road, I can call my dog back to me and communicate very clearly with the remote collar. Okay, so that's generally what I'll do in those situations, but there are individuals who will keep hammering you as a cruel person or whatever, and in the end, in that situation, what you're going to have to do is just tell them, I'm sorry, we see things differently, and let them do their thing, right? Did you have that podcast? 83. So going back to the resource guarding question, Pack Talk Podcast 83, we did a deep dive on resource guarding, so you can listen to that on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube to get our in-depth analysis and how we work through resource guarding. All right. So good question, Tess. Good question about the resource guarding as well. Pack Talk Podcast 83, you'll be good to go. Also, Pack Talk Podcast, I want to say 75. We did a deep, it's either 75 or 76. We did a deep dive on remote collars. We explained the history of the remote collar, what it's actually doing, and how it could be beneficial. With that being said, kind of something that's been going on recently, and something that Aaron is actually working a dog through right now. Aaron's training a dog that had been formerly trained by somebody else, another company, and unfortunately the other company was using pressure training techniques on the dog, which is just not good for a dog. And so what she's doing is she's rehabilitating this dog and helping the dog to understand communication clearly, establishing a foundation of relationship first before we start doing any type of accountability with the dog. And we have to do this quite a bit, right? There are so many dog trainers out there training improperly. They're using pressure. They're trying to get training done quick. They're trying to get things done fast. They're not thinking about what's best for the dog. So when you're out there talking about dog training, talking about dog behavior, or whoever's content that you're listening to, or who you're sending your dog to or working with, be very careful. Please stay away from trainers that are using pressure too early in training, or that don't really understand training at all. And so if you are talking to a trainer and they have a 2-week board and train program, that's a red flag. 2-week board and train is too short of a time to actually get foundational work done. Okay. Also, if you're working with a trainer and they want to put a remote collar or an e-collar on your dog on day 1, that's another red flag, right? Don't do that either, right? If they're starting to hammer your dog with leash corrections on day 1, that's another red flag. So take all this into account as you're selecting a trainer that you're going to work with. All right. Going back to YouTube here, Mike says, is it bad for my dog that I take her for walks? She has a good heel with me. When my wife takes her, my wife doesn't want her to heel and just lets her walk in front of her. What do you think about that, Aaron? What's your 2 cents?
Dogs are super smart.
Yeah.
And so they definitely understand context. It can, in some ways transfer over to you, Mike, when you're taking your dog for a walk right after your wife has, your dog may be testing you a little bit more in that heel position. But in general, we have clients in the same kind of regard where they're like, well, this is fine with me.
Right,
and then when
right.
we take the dog, the dog's right by our left side.
Right.
So at that point, it just kind of becomes, a part of where your dog knows those boundaries. But as long as you are consistent in your work with your dog, then that's what's going to show in your guys' relationship. And then same with your wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the big thing about if my dog's not healing, I still don't want them pulling on the leash.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say if the dog's pulling on the leash, I would have a conversation with your wife and work on that dog understanding to keep a loose leash, even if it's not healing,
Mm-hmm.
right? But, if your wife does one thing and you do the other thing, like Aaron said, that's fine, as long as you're holding the dog to your expectation when you're the one handling your dog. Hope that makes sense. All right, DK says, what do you guys think of animal communicators? Have you ever worked with one? I'm assuming someone that can, what's it, like someone that communicates with a deceased animal. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Medium, like an animal medium. Yeah, that's like communicating with a dead animal or something like that. Well, I've heard stories of it, and people saying that they've communicated with their old dogs or cats or whatever. I've never worked with one. I don't really know too much about them. I know I can communicate with a live animal. Yeah, I know pet psychic, right? That's what we're talking about. So, yeah, I've never worked with one. I don't really know too much about them. I don't know all that stuff that works. I know how that type of thing works. I know there's a lot in the spiritual realm that we don't understand, Ghosts,
Sure.
We've talked about ghosts before. We've talked about it on podcasts before. You believe in ghosts?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe in ghosts too. So I do think that there's an element to what is that show that says it like
Ghost Adventures.
No, the Ghost Adventures show is they're talking to ghosts. But what about the show where it's like you have 2 worlds? You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like the live world and the other world. I don't know.
There's a lot of shows like that.
Yeah. Anyway, you got your two realms, right? You got your realm that we're living in, then you got your spiritual realm. There's a lot that we don't understand about that, but definitely something interesting. I would say, DK, if you decide to work with one, or if you have worked with one, let us know your experience. Would definitely be interested in hearing about that. Okay. Courage the Cowardly Dog. That's the one I was thinking of. So.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Anyway, good to go. Thanks for jumping in with that, Joel. All right, keep sending us your questions. If you guys have questions, we've got a few minutes left before we got to move on here. We're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube. All right, we already talked a little bit about being wary of what dog trainers you're working with, right? Aaron is currently rehabilitating a dog that unfortunately worked with a trainer before us that used a lot of pressure on the dog. And what that can do is, it can reduce your dog's, ability to operate on their own. It can reduce your dog's ability to make decisions for their own. It can suppress, their personality, things like that. So we don't want that. We want what is best for our dog. And what's best for our dog is to have a clear understanding of your relationship, right? You want to be a fair leader to your dog. You don't want to be an overbearing leader. You also don't want to be a leader where your dog just does whatever they want to do, because then that can be a spoiled dog, right? So you want to be that balanced, fair leader to your dog and help your dog understand what their role is in your pack, in your family. So that starts off with establishing a relationship with your dog where they understand that paying attention to you is a fun thing. Paying attention to you is a good thing. Good things happen when you're together, right? Once that happens, then you can teach your dog obedience, because what that does is it gives you a way to manage your dog. It also gives your dog options of what to do when they don't know what to do, right? Let's say people are coming over, your dog's excited. Instead of jumping because you've been through the obedience process, your dog decides to sit and wait for someone to touch them, right? So that's something that can happen as well. And then at some point in our training, we do want to teach our dog about accountability. What happens if you break the rules? Rules are different for everybody. I don't let my dogs jump on people. I don't let my dogs jump on counters. I don't let my dogs dig in the trash. I don't let my dogs chew my blinds. I don't let my dogs chase my cats.
Good
I don't let my dogs knock over my kids. These kind of things, right? You might have some different rules, Aaron, and you guys watching, you might have some different rules. But it's important for us to establish our rules and teach our dogs what happens if they break those rules. And that's where accountability comes in. Okay, so that's kind of your step-by-step process to establishing that the proper way versus starting off with pressure training. And Michelle asks, what do you mean by pressure training? Pressure training is basically day one of training or very early in training. The trainer that you're working with is, using leash corrections on your dog to try and teach your dog things through leash corrections versus teaching them through a foundation of relationship. Okay. Also, what a lot of trainers these days will do, they'll put a remote collar or an e-collar on your dog day one, and they'll start using that to teach your dog things, or start shaping things for your dog with the e-collar. Again, not ideal. In some cases it could work. In other cases it could definitely backfire and hurt your relationship with your dog. And we believe the foundation of training should be your relationship with your dog. So we focus on that first. Then we build up behavior through rewards. Then we fade out those rewards. We slowly reduce rewards. And then we'll teach the dog about accountability, which will either be a leash correction or remote collar communication later, but not at the beginning of training. So I hope that makes sense. All right. DK, appreciate the comments. Thanks for being here. All right, Taylor says, what do you recommend for a new dog with no training that consistently tries to jump the fence at the dog park? Also, he gets overly excited and puppy bites at your hand when you try to pet him. So, new dog with no training, I'm going to be training the dog. I'm going to teach my dog my expectations. So if I take my dog to the dog park and he tries to jump the fence, guess what? He's going to be on leash. That way, when he goes to that fence, I can just guide him away from the fence. But before I even do that, before I even take him to the dog park, I want to establish my relationship. I do that through engagement, where I have my food rewards with me, my dog on a leash, my dog's hanging out. They look at me, I say good, I reward them, repetitions of that. We've talked about that already today on live. We've got YouTube videos on it. We've also got podcasts on it, okay? But that's kind of our beginning process. That way we start to establish that relationship and that respect from our dog, okay? But if I'm taking my dog to the dog park and it's jumping the fence, I'm not going to allow my dog to do that. I'm going to apply some management, because remember, what your dog practices is what your dog will continue to do. So for the dog park specific scenario, I have a leash on the dog. The dog tries to go for the fence. I just use the leash to move them away from the fence. And I'm working on my training progression to build them up to where I can remote collar condition them, so I can give them the freedom to be a dog off leash, but still have that communication factor that I need. If the dog is getting overly excited and puppy bites at my hand when I try to pet him, the dog doesn't understand how to interact with me. That's what's going on there. Some people think the dog's trying to control them. Some people think the dog is trying to, do different things, attack them or whatever. That's not what's happening. The dog just doesn't know what to do for that interaction. So you have to teach them how to handle being pet. And I will say there's a number of dogs out there that don't like being pet. So you have to be respectful of that as well if you have a dog that doesn't appreciate getting pet. But if you go through the training process that we're talking about, a lot of times that dog will learn to like physical contact just from your training process. So what do I do with a puppy that's getting overly exciting and biting at my hand when I'm trying to pet them? I'm just going to classically condition them to getting pet. So what do? I have them on a leash. I have my food rewards with me. I give a very short pet, and then I quickly good reward, right? And what that does over time is it teaches the dog that getting pet feels the same as getting a food reward. And so the biting will stop, right? That's what classical conditioning is. But also on working through my training process, building up my training progression, if I have done what I just said and I'm working on my training progression, I get to the accountability phase of training and it's still a problem, at that point I will use accountability to help secure that boundary for my dog. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Let us know if you have further questions. Real quick, any questions from TikTok or Instagram, Ben?
Someone from Chris from TikTok, don't have a question about dog training per se, but how do you train owners to not allow bad behaviors?
This is the difficult part of dog training, Chris, and it's going to be compliance, right? Compliance is a problem. So if you're a dog trainer and you're trying to train people on how to train their dogs, you have to have a certain level of flexibility and understanding depending on who you're working with. So, you know, you probably have a very high standard for yourself. If you're a dog trainer, you expect a certain thing, you like things a certain way. The people you're working with are not you. They're not at that level. So try to baby step it for them. Give them one little thing to work on. And once they're able to do that, give them the next thing. If they're struggling with one of your baby steps, see if you can make it simpler for them, right? And just work with those people and what's going to be best for them. And also, you know, try not to get frustrated yourself, because it can definitely be frustrating because you have a certain expectation for the dog and what you're working on, but you're also working with the people as well. Mm-hmm. And as you know, the hardest thing about dog training is training people. Well, you got any input on that one, Erin?
No, it's definitely, I mean, I would also say, like, when you talked about baby steps, like, also try to think of analogies in terms of us, you know? Right. So, like, how people are like, what's an example? Now I'm struggling.
An analogy?
Yeah.
Of, like, us?
Well, no, like dog behavior that, you know, I can think of so many that I can't think of one.
Well, one thing with compliance is what just doesn't apply to everybody, but exercising or working out or dieting, you know, people are not able to achieve their goals from a physical perspective, what they want to achieve with their aesthetics or what they want to achieve with their physical goals or their diet goals, usually from a lack of compliance, right? So how can we adjust that compliance or that, you know, protocol for them so that they can be compliant and slowly build up their tolerance from being more compliant? You know, it's like one analogy, but go ahead. No,
I mean, yeah, I just definitely think as well in terms of like dogs barking at other dogs, like those behaviors, and people are like, oh, they want to play, like they're friendly, like, you know, things like that. Oh, she loves dogs and stuff like that, right? And so no matter how many different ways we break it down for someone, they're still believing, you know, that dog, oh no, he wants to talk to him, like he wants to communicate, he wants to go see him. And so as a behaviorist that like we are, like it can be difficult and frustrating to be like you said, like that dog doesn't like being pet. This dog doesn't necessarily care about being around other dogs. But owners wanting to insist on that interaction. Right. And so just kind of thinking about like, hey, well, like, you know, imagine, you know, your mindset when you don't want to do things. Like I tell people all the time, crowds make me nervous. Right. Right. But there's a level of that I have to work through in order to be successful, in order to get through things. Right. So like there's that level of kind of flipping the script sometimes that helps people be okay, yeah. It's just sometimes people can't believe their dog thinks that way. Right. Because we underestimate how smart they are. Right. You know?
Or, you know, another thing, like let's say like in your example, a dog's barking at another dog or something, and the people are like, oh, they're just talking or whatever. Maybe that behavior is actually linked to a problem they're having. My dog's pulling on the leash, you know. I don't like them pulling on the leash, but they don't mind them barking at the other dog. So you try to link those two together and say, well, the barking at the other dogs is actually causing your leash pulling to be worse, you know, because your dog's not respecting you or your boundaries. So you can kind of link things together that way as well. So just some things to think about. That's definitely the hardest part about being a dog trainer. But Chris, if you want to reach out to us, we can consult with you on specific situations virtually to help you work through whatever you're working through as well. Okay. Going back to some YouTube comments here. Tess says, Honey gets really nervous during storms like last night. We usually have her on spot in her kennel with the sound machine on. Anything else we can do to help her work through this? Fireworks also. So it sounds like loud noises. Erin, what are you thinking?
If we know these things are coming, so like if there's a storm in the forecast, even rain. I mean, rain, I don't some people will. I don't favor, long walks in the rain. Or
You don't?
I don't favor them. If I need to, I will. But if I can plan ahead, 4th of July, New Year's Eve, big days for fireworks, things along those lines, I'm going to make sure that my dog's well exercised on those days, making sure that when they are on spot, when they are in the kennel, they're already tired. And so that can help alleviate that nervousness, that anxiety that comes with loud noises, that comes with storms, because they're
the
exercise
that you're doing is shedding that extra energy.
Yeah.
So instead of putting energy into being anxious or whatever, or nervous, they don't have as much energy because you've already helped them work through that energy.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
The other thing too is, like, if it's raining and you didn't get to go for a walk or whatever, you can do things inside.
Yeah.
Inside mental challenges are a great way to burn out some extra energy. If it's raining or storming and your dog's nervous, have them doing some drills. Have them doing some spot drills. I like to go across my house and send my dog to spot from different areas of the room where they have to figure out how to get there, right?
Oh, yeah. I went down the YouTube train one day and saw some like COVID challenges y'all were doing with your dogs virtually.
Yeah, those were good.
Just getting creative. I mean,
Right.
teach your dog something new and start shaping that behavior, and start going through a training progression in that regard. Mental stimulation is always going to help, giving them something else to focus on, and learning something new. So
teaching them a
definitely-
new thing. How to pick up things off the ground.
Sure.
How to wear a muzzle, even if your dog doesn't need a muzzle. You can teach your dog to put one on and wear it around or whatever. How to hold their own leash. How to get into a chair. You remember the chair challenge, Ben? Long time
That's
ago.
the one I watched.
You saw that? We did this chair challenge a long time ago. I have to find that old video and repost it so you guys can see it. But basically, we had a bunch of people training their dogs to get into a chair and sit in the chair, right? So that takes some coordination. You can also do doorway protocols, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. You know what I'm saying? There's a bunch of different things you could do in your house. That's a great way to get a nervous dog working. But putting them on spot, putting them in their kennel, great thing to do as well. The main thing is, do not reinforce your dog's nervous or anxious mindset if there's fireworks, a storm, loud noises, anything. What too many people do, something loud goes off, it's okay, you'll be all right. They start petting them.
Yeah.
They put their dog in the closet. They start sleeping in the closet with their dog. All we're doing is reinforcing the anxious or nervous mindset. So just like with us, going through stress can help us learn how to cope with stress later. All right. So keep that in mind. And the more you can do those types of things, the better. But definitely you can use spot or kennel. Right? You don't have to have a sound machine on if you don't want to, because there's vibrations. If there's a storm and it's thundering, there's vibrations that the sound machine is not going to help with anyway. Fireworks, there's vibrations. Sound machine's not going to help with that. I'd like my dog to know how to cope with things as well without, like some
Added instruments.
Right, added instruments in there, right? So good to go with that.
One more question
Yep.
from TikTok. I was recommended to put my 10-month-old dog down. He's super reactive. He's progressed a lot, but he gets spooked easily. Tried biting my dad just for grabbing the broom. You would think he's been abused, but we've had him since he was 4 months.
What's the name?
Mariah.
Yeah. So you got your 10-month-old dog being kind of wild, right? Can you pull up the podcast episode for the Ultimate Dog Training Guide? 96. So Mariah, what I recommend you do with your dog, first of all, don't put your dog down, right? We talked earlier with DK, who has a rescue dog and, previously had some trauma in its life, previously had bad owners, but DK is taking ownership, responsibility, working their dog through what's going on instead of giving it up, instead of putting it down. You don't need to do that. We can take ownership of our dog. That's why we're here. That's why Canine Revolution exists, to help you achieve what you need to with your dog so you can live a great life with your dog and give your dog a great life. So 10 months old, it's doing some of these behaviors. It's probably 1 or 2 reasons why this is happening, which the root cause is always important. But it's probably either rooted in dominance, like my own dog was back in the day, or rooted in insecurity, right? If your dog's insecure, it's nervous about things, it's scared about things, so it's trying to control the environment so that it cannot be so nervous. If your dog's dominant, your dog's trying to control the dominant or the environment because it wants to be in control of everything. Either way, we have a training progression that will help your dog get from where it's at now to living peacefully in your home with clear communication. We outlined that in Pack Talk Podcast, episode 96. That's available on YouTube. It's also available on your favorite podcast platform, but we went in extreme detail on that podcast so you can learn to do this on your own at home. But again, the foundation of any training is going to be your relationship. It's also management of your dog. Remember, whatever your dog is doing is what they will continue to do. So if your dog is able, to go after your dad or your family member when they grab the broom, able to be reactive, your dog will continue to do those things. So you have to prevent that from happening through management. Now, how do you manage a dog? Keep a leash on them, right? If they're with you, keep them in a kennel. If they don't know how to do a downstay or a spot command, or they don't know how to behave. And some people are like, well, that's not right because my dog will be in the kennel for a long period of time. Well, you have to make sure that you're fulfilling your dog's instinctual needs of daily physical exercise and daily mental exercise around those kennel times. And you have to be constantly working to progress your training so your dog doesn't need the kennel to be managed and to make good decisions. So that's kind of the short answer for that, but definitely check out Pack Talk Podcast 96. Reach out to us if you'd like us to do some virtual lessons or consulting with you to help you pinpoint exactly certain things that are going on. But thank you for your question. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. We're taking a quick break real quick to talk about our affiliates that we work with. First of all, we got Canine Super Supplements. This is the joint support right here. I definitely recommend you guys check that out on caninesupersupplements.com. Use discount code Canine Revolution for 15% off. They have other supplements. This is the number one supplement that I recommend for most people. It's a powder. You put it in your dog's food. It's good to go. Also, We Feed Raw. We have one of their bowls right here. It's raw dog food delivered to you to optimize your dog's health and longevity. So go to wefeedraw.com, sign up for a meal plan, use discount code Canine Revolution for 25% off. Also, raw food can be a little bit more expensive. So for your budget, start with a little bit of raw. You got your kibble food, get 25% of your raw into that kibble meal. You'll see great benefit from that. Check out wefeedraw.com for that, okay? We've also got Jocko Fuel right here for your clean human energy, clean supplements. I just had the iced tea lemonade energy drink, and I'm definitely good to go. All right, any questions from Instagram? Oh, I forgot to say, discount code Canine Revolution, Jocko Fuel. All right, check it out. No questions from Instagram. Instagram family, thank you for being here. TikTok, any more questions? We're good. Thank you, TikTok family. Thank you for being here. YouTube, thank you guys. All right, thank you for your questions. Thank you for your support. What we try to do is if you're commenting on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, you're commenting on our posts, you're asking for input on things. There's so many comments. What we do read them, but we try to make videos on our YouTube to answer your questions, or we try to make a podcast episode to answer your question in as much detail as possible. If you're following us on Facebook, there's a lot of trolls on Facebook. You know, they'll be trolling us on Facebook, so we tend not to read the Facebook comments because they get a little crazy. But TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, we're definitely reading those comments. We're trying to make content to reply to your comments. Long form YouTube videos, podcasts to get the detailed answers that you guys are looking for are our number one things we're trying to do right now. So what you can do for us, if you have more questions, if you'd like to see certain content, please drop it in a YouTube comment. Please drop it in an Instagram or TikTok comment. I'm glad that DK brought up animal psychics because now I kind of want to interview one on a podcast. That would be interesting. So Ben, write that down for a podcast, okay? Definitely have to look into one. And DK, if you have an animal sidekick that you recommend, please send that to us as well so I can possibly look into getting them on the podcast as a guest. We're releasing a podcast in a week, a little over a week, with one of the We Feed Raw people. Blows your mind. blows your mind how bad kibble is for your dog. So you guys keep an eye out for that. We've also got a vet coming on the podcast in April, I want to say. He's been a vet for over 50 years. He does alternative and holistic veterinary practice. He believes in food helping your dog optimize their performance and helping them to recover their own bodies, right? Like humans do as well. So I'm really looking forward to talking to him. He does cold lasers. He does chiropractic care. He does supplements and herbs and stuff like that. So that'll be super interesting. That was recommended to us by a listener to reach out to him. So we got in contact with him. We're getting him on the podcast. So definitely check that out. Let us know what you guys think. Please rate us. Please review us on your favorite podcast platform. And, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our other social channels as well. All right. Any last minute questions? No last minute questions. Thank you guys again for being here. We'll see you next time on our next live. And until then, y'all have a good one and get out there training your dogs. Have a good time with them. Have fun with them, right? Make good decisions. And if you don't know what to do, hit us up so we can help guide you. All right. We'll see you guys next time.